ex-actor turned porn star slams Disney as a place that basically just treats women like meat. So if you don't know who Maitland Ward is, she played Rachel McGuire from 1998 to 2000 on Boy Meets World. And she basically says that the girls had to be both virginal yet also sexual. Does anybody know what the hell that means?
No.
Yeah, Topanga Lawrence.
Okay.
Is what that means.
No, what's creepy about this is because the demographic reach for a show like Boy Meets World would have been for what, teenage boys, because the main character was a boy. So the girl has to be both appealing but also virgin. That's super creepy to have like specific criteria for something like that, and to have that type of imaging down to like a science for them. And she's slamming Disney as treating women like meat. Does it seem a bit weird that a woman would be the one, that a woman who has now left acting to do porn find acting to be the more abhorrent profession?
I was an avid Boy Meets World watcher.
absolutely.
I saw it from beginning to end.
Me too.
And she was the hot roommate for Eric, who was the older brother, and Sean's stepbrother that he met in the future.
Yeah.
And so her role in the show was literally to be a temptress. So it's kind of like
She was already older. She was already...
I mean, the idea is like she's college age and hot.
But they're not wrong about the way that girls were treated in these shows. There's plenty of evidence of people who worked for Dan Schneider at Nickelodeon, other actresses. We all know how Disney actresses... Oh, somebody says Burt Meets World.
See what I mean? They just keep going.
That's perfect.
It's a great name to make things of.
It's a verb, noun, adjective. It's a way of life.
It rolls right off the tongue.
Chat, I would like to know if Topanga Lawrence was in fact your crush growing up, or if there was somebody else. Some might say that there were others from that time period, but for me, it was Danielle Fishel as Topanga Lawrence.
She's such an interesting character because so she's like the prototype girl boss.
Yeah,
because she was good looking. They always talked about how she did really well in school, and she was like largely more successful than Corey was in the show. And yet she always stuck by her guy. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's what a lot of guys loved about her more than I think looks alone. Yeah. Was that there was just she embodied the feminine nature that we most like about women.
And that we don't see anymore in a lot of these types of roles.
Or ever.
Yeah.
Honestly. It might have been the first appearance of the manic pixie dream girl, but...
So she says, even though there were issues with Disney in production and my character and relationships, I do remember it as an innocent time. Though with the cast, that was very much a family. And I mean that in all possible ways, because it's like with family. You fight with family, you have issues, but you're still connected. And I think a producer from the show told me, no matter what, after all this time, we're always going to be connected in this. So she has a problem with Disney the machine, not the other actors or the people working on set. It's more the corporation. And that's because we've turned, for a lot of these things, they've sexualized women and, unfortunately, women and teenage girls at companies like Disney and Nickelodeon. And that's a ghoulish thing to do. And I don't know if there's a better example of it than these shows from this era, because they've toned that down now because they understand that you're not supposed to be doing something like that.
You know what? Back in the day, the whole Nickelodeon thing with the feet obsession. Yeah. As a kid, I didn't get it that it was a sexual thing. Right. I just was like, I don't know, there's a lot of feet, man. Yeah. Feet are funny. Looking back at it's
through a different lens. Yeah. Because it's stuff being made by adults for kids, not realizing the innuendo that's in there. Also, for a company like Disney, who seems to go through these problems where every few years a new star has to come out and go through their own downfall, it's only further proof that bad things go on at these companies. So maybe there's something to what I was saying about to saying that Sam Smith is part of a demonic industry. Maybe his example is try hard cringe, but as a whole, it is a demonic industry that chews people up and spits them out.
I'm of two thoughts of this.
Okay.
Oh, birth control time. So the first is that I feel that in the past we had I don't know if this is the word, but a healthier understanding about sexuality. Okay. And that it's imperfect and animalistic and and it's kind of a struggle that everyone has to deal with in their own way, and there's like more, I don't know, like civilized ways to go about it. You know,
to discussing it, or to
discussing it, and especially about the dark and murky areas around it.
Consent stuff, like the way that they talk about that stuff.
I think that consent, we're better now about talking about it, but I think about the nature of sexuality itself, we didn't demonize it as strongly back then, because with essentially the claim that she's making of like being so sexual yet innocent.
See, I just thought that was a very creepy, crazy thing that that they actually have like producers and directors and people who have to find a line there.
So so I think of everything from a marketing perspective.
Okay.
And what I'm trying to think is that maybe a better way for the casting people to say it's like, just think of yourself as young and in love.
Okay.
You know, and we were all young once.
He's like crying right now. He's like, I used to be young.
Oh, dude, there was this Facebook post that broke me. It's like a screenshot of a magazine from a game. Okay. It says an old engineer, and the age it says 32, and I'm like, I'm 33.
That's aggressive.
I know, but the thing is, like, you know, Boy Meets World, we grew up with it, and it did cover being young, being in love, you know. Yeah. Despite not having all this world experience, you still have the depths of human emotion.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it was so much easier to talk about things like that back then. And
why do you think that was?
I think it was because it was pre-internet.
Yes.
And we were all down with enjoying the common experience.
I think it's actually more, it's like people are too scared of saying the wrong thing or not knowing where the boundaries are with people. So that way, you know, when you say something like that to just somebody in person, that's different than if you're typing it to someone, or if it's part of some type of digital discourse in which you're having a conversation with someone and then you worry about how that looks to them in a written form in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah.
And we've just become, in a lot of ways, both more demonic and more puritanical as a society.
I just think the quintessential American dream is beautiful. To be middle class, which is incredibly wealthy in the eyes of human history, find love, find stability, grow and prosper within your community.
Yeah.
Like, that honestly is good enough. And and I feel like
they don't want to promote that anymore.
No, and I feel like we got to a point where rampant individualism kind of took precedent over the greater good.
I would say rampant narcissism and not individualism.
So that's, you know, individualism is the mask and narcissism is the face that lies behind it.
Okay.
Yep.
And so
I actually kind of struggle with that because I am the type of person who I don't like standing for groups or for anything like that. And if anything, I become overtly contrarian sometimes just because I don't want to be boxed into one place, one area, one idea. And I do wonder sometimes if that is more to do with a certain amount of inward narcissism rather than just not liking the idea of being stuck in a group.
But I feel like there's something to be said about somebody who is a little narcissistic, but they're at least aware of it.
Yeah.
And they're not, you know.
Kanye.
And that's the struggle.
Sure. Yeah, I guess. But I don't know. It's being aware of your own flaws goes a long way.
For me, I'm kind of thankful every day that I'm aware of my limits. I would hope to think that I know exactly how little I know, especially given by the fact that I get to come into contact with a lot of really smart people, and that kind of humbles you on a regular basis and reminds you that you don't know much of anything sometimes. At least I feel that way a lot of the times. I enjoy talking to people like that. I enjoy figuring out how they think, But for something like this, I wonder how it came to be at a place like Disney where we've commodified the human experience for teenagers. Was there ever a time where we wouldn't have expected that to go wrong in some fashion, that kids would get chewed up and spit out?
So my constant debate with Shane is that I firmly take the stance that art is dead.
Okay.
I firmly take the stance that art is dead because we are in the most terrifying, censorious time of them all, because it's not heavy-handed force. It's subtle social pressures that lead to self-censorship.
Yeah.
And when it's heavy-handed force, incredible art would come through it, because in the art, the violence and the ugliness would take place and manifest, and people could be like, I see that.
Okay.
I understand. I feel that precisely.
Is that just not possible in our generation because we have it so good here?
Because every person is a universe.
Yeah.
And so how do I convey my universe and the things that I'm censoring in order to appease the people that I hate the most in the world? Like, how do I convey that in an artful, tasteful way?
Yeah.
It's hard because I'm not courageous enough to say it.
And that's the thing, is like a lot of the people that end up being successful with art now have to have that perfect combination of both actually being an extremely talented and gifted artist and the willingness to speak up about things that are lightning rods for controversy or issues that people actually want to hear discussed, right? Like one of the examples that's interesting is like Tom McDonald. He had a song called Straight White Male, which is really... Yeah. But just nobody else would have been willing to do that. Like, it's just like you're putting a target on your back in a lot of ways. And he actually had told stories where he'd said that like he'd given himself a specific amount of time to become successful, and if he didn't hit it by that time, he was gonna off himself.
Damn.
He succeeded in time. Yeah, right. Like he was able to do that, and that's kind of what you're saying about like you have to be bold and you have to be daring with your art. That when these corporations are controlling it, and that's the problem I have with most of them, whether it's Disney. And the commodification of sexuality with girls, or whether it's Marvel and just reusing IP over and over again. We're not in a in a good place right now for creating new art. Not in the mainstream. It has to be done outside of that.
And by the way, I think that's a perfect example of something like a topic that can be done masterfully and artfully as well. Because perhaps not to that extent, but definitely when I was a mid-20-year-old and I wasn't where I wanted to be in life, I was like, I need to make an insane amount of change before I just give up. And give up, in my idea, was just like get fat, play video games, and not care about anything. Yeah. You know? And...
I've been there. I've literally been.
Yeah, same.
Like,
I think all might have been there.
Well, not that, but like for me, it was like when I was still using, like with drugs. For me, there was a time where I literally just accepted that I was going to die like that. Like not like I wasn't not that I was going to do something, but eventually overdose. Something was going to happen, and I was going to die. So coming around full circle and being here doing this every day, it's like how like the human mind is capable of a lot. To come full circle. So to your point, you weren't at that point at any point, right? You've thought about it, but you're not there.
Right. Yeah. Us three, in this very instance, we've related to that moment. Yeah. Have you felt that before?
Absolutely. I think it's like a male thing to feel. Like at some point you hit an age where you just start, it's like a rite of passage for men almost.
I agree.
I want to give up, but I'm not going to give up.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. It's what you make of that moment.
It's like the Rocky Balboa thing where it's like I don't want to be just some bum, and it doesn't mean I have to be the champion, but I want to know that like I went the distance. I tried.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.